Franklin High School on a Thursday afternoon was a blur of adolescence, shuffling sneakers, laughter echoing down stairwells, the occasional shriek from the science lab. But in room 204, all of that had faded to static. Mr. Elijah Turner stood at the front of his AP US history classroom, a well-worn textbook in one hand and a marker in the other. On the whiteboard behind him was written, "The Reconstruction Era, 1865 to 1877. The topic had already stirred discomfort among a few students. History was messy. People wanted easy answers. And not everyone wanted to face the truth about the past. Kayla Monroe sat in the third row from the front, her manicured nails tapping against her desk like the click of distant gunfire. She rolled her eyes at the textbook, then at the chalkboard, then, finally, at Mr. Turner. "Why do we even need to learn about this?" she said, not bothering to mask her sarcasm. A few heads turned. Everyone knew Kayla. Everyone also knew her reputation for saying what others were too scared, or too ignorant, to say. Mr. Turner lowered the book. "History matters. Understanding where we've been helps us make sense of where we are." Kayla scoffed. "Slavery, Jim Crow, segregation, it's all in the past. Nobody's picking cotton anymore. Honestly, it feels like you're just trying to make us feel guilty." The room went still. Mr. Turner blinked once, his eyes steady. "I'm teaching facts, Kayla. Guilt isn't part of the curriculum." But Kayla wasn't done. She leaned back in her chair, voice rising. "I just don't see why we need to hear this from someone who's clearly biased." The implication hung heavy in the air. Everyone knew what she meant. Mr. Turner took a long, silent breath. Then he said, softly but clearly, "We'll continue this conversation after class. Please stay seated." Kayla's cheeks flushed, but she didn't respond. The bell rang a few minutes later, and the classroom emptied quickly, too quickly. Principal Margaret Vasquez was not one to let things slide. By 3:15 p.m., Kayla sat in her office chair across from a large mahogany desk, arms crossed tightly over her chest. Mr. Turner sat to her right. His expression was calm, even tired, as though this wasn't the first time he'd had to endure such moments in his career. Principal Vasquez spoke slowly, carefully. "Kayla, your remarks were inappropriate and disrespectful, not just to Mr. Turner, but to your classmates and this institution." Kayla didn't look up. Her arms tightened. "It's freedom of speech." "No," the principal said sharply. "It's ignorance. And racism. We don't tolerate either at Franklin." Kayla's face burned with the weight of shame and indignation. She wasn't used to being spoken to like that. Her father, when called earlier, had already threatened to pull her from the school if this nonsense continued. Mr. Turner, still composed, said quietly, "I'm not asking for a punishment. I'm asking for awareness." "I'm not racist," Kayla blurted, her voice breaking slightly. "You don't need to wear a hood to be racist," Principal Vasquez replied, unflinching. "You just need to deny history, to belittle experience, to assume superiority. You did all three." For the first time, Kayla met Mr. Turner's gaze. He wasn't angry. He wasn't even cold. He just looked tired, worn out, as though the fight had gone on far longer than she could comprehend. "Kayla," Mr. Turner said gently, "do you know who I am outside this classroom?" She shook her head. "I didn't think so," he said, and stood to leave. That night, the Monroe household was uncharacteristically quiet. The large kitchen, usually filled with laughter or the hum of an espresso machine, felt like a cold museum. Kayla sat across from her mother, who nursed a glass of red wine in her hand. Her father was away at a late-night court prep meeting, leaving just the two of them. Her mother spoke first. "The school called me too. You know that, right?" Kayla nodded slowly. "I defended you," her mother added, but the way she said it didn't sound like victory. "But I also asked them to send me the footage." "What footage?" Kayla asked. "There's a camera in that classroom. The audio wasn't great, but I heard enough." Kayla squirmed. "Why did you say those things?" her mother asked softly. "I don't know," Kayla muttered. "I was just tired of hearing about it. About slavery. About racism. We didn't do any of that." Her mother leaned forward, her voice taut. "You didn't." But you're still responsible for understanding it. For respecting it. Especially from someone like him. Kayla's brows furrowed. What do you mean? Her mother blinked, and something like pain crossed her face. I've met Mr. Turner before. A long time ago. You were there too. Kayla tilted her head, confused. I was pregnant with you, her mother said. And I went into labor early. I was alone. My phone had died. I was in the middle of a grocery store parking lot. Kayla's breath caught. Everyone ignored me. People walked by. They stared, but no one helped. Her mother swallowed hard. Except one man. A man with dark skin who ran across the lot, helped me into my car, drove me to the ER, stayed until I was safe. She looked up at her daughter, her voice cracking. That man was Mr. Elijah Turner. 4 hours after that conversation, Kayla couldn't sleep. She kept seeing Mr. Turner's face, not in the classroom, but behind the wheel of a car, gripping the steering wheel tightly as her mother cried in labor. She saw him pacing nervously in a hospital hallway, a stranger who had no reason to stay. She kept replaying her own words in class. Get over it. You're biased. They tasted like acid now. She got out of bed at 2:13 a.m. and walked quietly down the stairs. In the living room, her mother sat with the TV on mute, lost in thought. When she saw Kayla, she muted the screen completely. I'm sorry, Kayla whispered. Her mother nodded, but didn't say anything. I didn't know. You didn't want to know, her mother replied gently. That hurt more than any punishment Principal Vasquez could hand out. I want to say something to him, Kayla said. But I don't know what. Start with thank you, her mother said. Then listen. The next day at school, the hallways felt heavier to Kayla. Each step echoed louder as she approached room 204. She hadn't spoken to Mr. Turner since the outburst, and now, standing in front of the classroom door, she felt an unfamiliar knot in her stomach. Taking a deep breath, she pushed the door open just as the bell rang. The class was already settling in. Mr. Turner looked up and paused, eyebrows raised in cautious surprise. Can I talk to you? Kayla asked, her voice barely above a whisper. He nodded slowly and gestured for her to step outside. Once the door closed behind them, Kayla looked down, twisting her fingers. I'm sorry for what I said yesterday, she began, her voice trembling. And for what I said before. Mr. Turner's gaze was steady but not unkind. Why do you think you said those things, Kayla? She hesitated, then confessed, I didn't know. I didn't know you were the one who helped my mom. I didn't think about what I was really saying. I was angry. I thought I was right. He nodded slowly, understanding dawning in his eyes. Sometimes people say things because they don't want to feel vulnerable. Because they're scared of truths they don't want to face. Kayla swallowed hard. I want to understand. I want to listen. Mr. Turner smiled faintly. That's a good place to start. Over the next few weeks, Kayla found herself paying closer attention in history class. The dry facts and dates began to breathe with meaning she hadn't grasped before. One afternoon, after class, she stayed behind. Mr. Turner was packing his books when she approached. Can you tell me more about the Reconstruction era? She asked. He looked surprised but pleased. Of course. It's often overlooked because it's complicated and uncomfortable. They sat down, and for the first time, history wasn't a burden but a story. A story of struggle, loss, hope, and resilience. Kayla listened intently as he spoke about the Black Codes, the rise of the Ku Klux Klan, and the efforts of freed slaves to build new lives. She saw the echoes of those struggles in the present world, in the subtle injustices she'd never noticed before. Mr. Turner talked about his family history, about ancestors who had been slaves and sharecroppers, and the sacrifices they made for the freedom Kayla had taken for granted. Understanding this history, he said, is how we build a better future. Kayla nodded, feeling something shift inside her, a seed of empathy she hadn't expected. One Friday afternoon, Mr. Turner invited Kayla to the local hospital, the same one where her mother had given birth. She was hesitant at first but agreed. In a quiet hospital corridor, Mr. Turner led her to a small garden where patients and visitors sometimes gathered. "This is where your mother rested after you were born," he said softly. "She was scared and alone until I found her." Kayla sat on a bench, overwhelmed by the connection she'd never known existed. "Why did you help her?" she asked. Mr. Turner looked at her as if seeing her for the first time. "Because it was the right thing to do. Because every life matters. Including yours." Tears welled in Kayla's eyes. She realized that beneath the surface of anger and prejudice was a shared humanity she had ignored. "Thank you," she whispered. "You're welcome," he replied. "Now it's your turn to carry that kindness forward." After that day, Kayla's world began to change. She joined the school's diversity club, eager to learn more and help others understand. She started volunteering at community centers, meeting people whose lives were different from hers but whose hopes were the same. One afternoon, Kayla spoke at an assembly about her journey, about the ignorance she'd confronted and the lessons she'd learned. The auditorium was packed, and as she spoke, she saw Mr. Turner sitting in the front row, pride shining in his eyes. Kayla's words were raw but honest. "I was wrong," she said. "I judged without knowing. But now, I understand the importance of history, of empathy, and of respect." The crowd erupted into applause. Kayla knew she still had a long way to go, but for the first time, she felt she was on the right path. The weeks that followed Kayla's speech were filled with change, not just for her, but for the entire school community. The diversity club grew larger, conversations about race and history became more frequent, and barriers slowly started to break down. One afternoon, Kayla found herself sitting next to Mr. Turner in the teacher's lounge. The two shared a quiet moment amid the hum of other teachers talking about lesson plans and upcoming tests. "I want to thank you," Kayla said, her voice steady but soft, "for helping my mom that night. For not giving up on me, even when I was so wrong." Mr. Turner smiled. "You've grown a lot, Kayla. It's not easy to admit mistakes, especially ones tied to things deeper than ourselves." She nodded. "I think I was scared. Scared to see the world the way it really is. But now, I want to be better. Not just for me, but for everyone around me." He reached out and placed a hand on her shoulder. "That's all anyone can ask for. Change begins with one person willing to see beyond themselves." Kayla felt the weight of those words settle in her heart. It was more than a lesson in history, it was a lesson in life. Graduation day arrived, bright and clear, and the school gym buzzed with excitement and nerves. Kayla sat among her classmates, a mix of emotions swirling inside her. When it was her turn to speak at the ceremony, she stood before the crowd with confidence she hadn't known she had months ago. "Today," she began, "I want to talk about bridges. Not the ones made of steel or stone, but the bridges we build between people." She glanced toward Mr. Turner, sitting proudly in the audience. Sometimes, those bridges start with a moment of pain or misunderstanding. Sometimes, they begin when we confront the things we don't want to see. Kayla took a deep breath. "I was once blind to the pain others carry, blind to the history that shapes us all. But thanks to someone who showed me kindness when I least expected it, I learned that understanding and respect are the strongest bridges we can build." The gym erupted in applause. Kayla looked out over the sea of faces, students, teachers, parents, and felt the truth of her words resonate. After the ceremony, as the crowd thinned, Mr. Turner approached her. "You did well," he said quietly. "So did you," Kayla replied, smiling. "Thank you for everything." As they walked out together, the sun setting behind the school, Kayla knew that while the past could not be changed, the future was hers to shape, with empathy, courage, and hope.